and welcome to SonicLAB. Today we're looking at the Arturia MatrixBrute. Look at this thing, it's absolutely massive. This is Arturia's all analog monosynth, although it will do 3 paraphonic voices with a split and a duo in the top if that's what you want. But essentially it's like a muscle car of a synthesizer. It really is an impressive and huge thing. It weighs about 15-16 kilograms. You know, it's not something that is trying to be kind of petite and portable. It just goes, look at my synth. And really what Arturia have done here, and I'd like to congratulate them on before I start any critique, is, you know, for having the cojones to make something this outrageous. So this is it. First thing, it's built like a tank, and it really is. Like I said, it's very heavy. It's got real wood everywhere. This isn't fake plastic wood. This is real wood end cheeks, solid metal construction, plenty of kind of, you know, it doesn't feel like it's flimsy in any way. This massive hinge along here, and as you can see at the side, now I've got this set up in kind of flip mode, but you can actually drop it down and have it flat if you want, or at slightly different angles. I'm going to leave it back up here just because it works a bit better. It's a little bit, one thing I will say, I'm a little bit scared that I might trap my finger underneath this thing. It might make more sense to have a kind of click, click, click kind of thing with a button, but you know, I'm not going to get too much into health and safety. I mean, why would you ever need anything like that on a synthesizer? But just saying, right? So 3 oscillators, 2 Brute style oscillators, one that doubles as an LFO, which has less options on it. 2 filters, the classic Steiner Parker filter from the Brute range, and also ladder filter, kind of Moog style filter. These are both multi-mode, low pass, band pass, high pass and notch on, and low pass, band pass and high pass on the ladder, and 12 and 24 dB on either. You can make the filters go in series or parallel. You can route each oscillator via the mixer to each filter. Lots of stuff going on there. As I say, there's 3 LFOs. There's also 3 envelope generators, an analog effects engine, which is basically just, as far as I can tell, it's like bucket brigades. So you can have stereo delay, mono delay, chorus, flanger and reverb, but it's analog. And the heart of it, obviously, we've got this massive matrix, which is a 16 by 16 LCD, LED backed with multi-colors. This is in sequencer mode, this is in modulation mode, so we can set up various routings, presets, and in preset mode we select presets. So 256 presets as standard, sequencer, as I say, and arpeggiator. And over here we've got this performance section, pitch and mod wheels, very nice and solid metal things. Glide and the play control, which gives you key hold and key priority, note priority and legato priority for different style things. And then these are signable controls which are assigned via the matrix. We've got this paper white LCD and it gives you the patch name and the routings of the matrix. So if we change patches, it's not fast refresh rate, it's not designed to give you much more feedback than that. So you get the patch name and these parameters here. So it's very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen one of those on a synthesizer before, so that's a new thing. So let's have a few sounds. Here's a few that I created, just noodling around. I mean, it's massive, it really is. Using the bandpass filter to create that sort of phasey sound. This one is using a sequencer and modulating various different kind of levels. I'm using the LFO1 to modulate the delay time. See that here? And the effects regeneration as well. This one is just all filter tracking and ring mod. So on a lot of those, I'm using a lot of the effects there, and it really does. It's nice to have that effects. I did say, you know, it's a shame that there weren't sort of perhaps some more digital type algorithms, but I think they wanted to make it as analog as possible. So let's take a look at the oscillators now. We've got classic Brute style oscillators, sawtooth, square wave, triangle, and they've all got their sort of variations. Then we've got obviously pulse width, and it's really nice that we've got that kind of gap in there, because that means we can do this thing where if I come to the matrix mod, LFO1 to piece, I can do that kind of gappy thing. I like to see through zero pulse width. I mean, it's no secret, I like pulse width modulation, and I think if you're going to implement it, it's nice to be able to go through zero, and you can here. We've also got the sub wave as well, which if I take, this is pure sine wave, octave below, bringing it through into a sort of, not quite a square wave, but a sort of square wave type thing. And I think that's something that's maybe slightly different to the micro and the mini Brute. I seem to remember that the sub sort of went through this kind of slightly 50 feeling. It changed the harmonics, so you almost got like a tuning vibe to it. So it's a little bit different there. Obviously, we've got the levels of all of these that we can then feed into the mixer, and so we've got quite a lot of gain staging we can do here. So this part is really interesting also. This is the audio rate modulation section, and this is basically where things get kind of quite tweaky. I've got a pair of triangle waves here, and now I can basically dial in the amount of cross mod between VCO1 and VCO2. This is 2 triangle waves. I've got 2 octaves of coarse plus or minus on each oscillator. So we've got quite a lot of mod there, but then I could also bring in VCO3, which is this guy. Turning it to the right modulates VCO2, left modulates VCO1. You can also switch off keyboard track, so you can have a sort of fixed FM kind of, so you can add these kind of really sort of powerful FM overtones. And there's more. We can also modulate, use the noise source to modulate VCO1 or VCF1, again on a centre dent. And we've got 4 different kinds of noise: white, pink, red, and blue. And if we want, we can move that to modulate the actual VCF as well. So again, you know, even more possibilities, and I've not seen that many kinds of noise in a synth before, I think, so that's quite a nice thing to have too. So now we come on to the mixer and the filters. This is where things get very interesting, because the mixer allows you to route between each filter for each of the sources, including noise and also the external input. We're going to listen to the Steiner-Parker filter here. One of the big things that we've also got is the ability for this additional gain staging. Not only have we got the gain staging for the actual level of the oscillator into the mixer, but we've also then got the output of the mixer into the filter, plus additional drive. So if I just play this bit of pulse width modulation, this is the Steiner-Parker. Now I take the gain up and bring... You get a real change of harmonics depending on how much you're driving in, and then we can also add additional drive. Don't forget we got band pass, high pass, and the notch filter. in 2 and 24 dB, 24 and 12 dB modes. So if we now listen to the ladder filter, I'm going to go to Sawtooth because it's a bit easier to hear what's going on. You've got that sort of slight ladder filter kind of classic smudge, which we can affect even more by taking the level of the wave into that up. And then you notice when we add more resonance, we do lose some bottom end, but not as much as you would expect from a kind of, say, a Moog style ladder filter. So they've done some tweaking to the basic form of this. 2 and 4 pole. And again, depending on how much drive you put, how much signal you put into the filter, the resonance has different characteristics. And we've got band pass and high pass filter here, and I will say that again, go to 24 dB, I'm not getting those big subharmonics coming out of the high pass full resonance, and that's, again, not sure why that is, but I would have expected a little bit more of that. We've got a positive and negative envelope amount on each of the filters, and they're routed to envelope 1, which also has its own velocity level as well. And of course, we've got this master cutoff, which essentially gives you the, it affects both filters at the same time. Again, we can go parallel or series. And this is essentially sort of a master cutoff for both filters. And that allows you, you can see the positive and negative amount. So, I mean, what it means, you can actually make that as a modulation destination, so you can affect both filters simultaneously without having to use up 2 routings. Now, one thing I will say is I was sort of trying to play the filter in terms of making a tracked filter sound. And it's a little bit, if I take the VCO out, just listening to the ladder filter here. Now what I need to do to make that happen, I'm going to go to the keyboard. I'm in Mod Matrix. I'm going to go to the keyboard and I'm going to change, put filter tracking on to the keyboard from the sequencer into ladder cutoff. Not tracking terribly well. I did speak to Glenn Darcy about this, and he said that his Brute did track very well, particularly in the ladder filter. The Steiner-Parker filter is unfortunately not quite as stable in terms of filter tracking. But so it may be that this just unit needs calibrating. I don't know if this is a full production unit or perhaps it's pre-production, so it should be more stable than that. So it is possible to track the filter, but I just couldn't get it to happen in this one. So let's get into some modulation. Obviously right here we've got a pair of LFOs. This is LFO1 and LFO2. Obviously LFO3 is linked with the VCO3. What I've got here, LFO2. I'm just routing a bit of pulse width modulation. They're both pretty much identical. Sine, triangle, square, ramp up, down, sample and hold, sample and glide. We've got a delay on LFO2, and on LFO1 is exactly the same, apart from we can change the phase of the waveform. Both are syncable to the sequencer tempo, but they've also got re-trigger modes. Let's just see how fast they can go. So what I'm going to do is route LFO1 to the ladder cutoff. If I come back here. Sort of go up into the audio rates, but not quite as far as the audio rate stuff, so not all that high, but certainly up there. They've also got these trigger modes, which are quite useful. So if we go into single mode, it then acts like a single cycle, like an envelope, effectively. So multi-mode. Just get a re-trigger every time you hit the note. So now we come up and take a look at the envelopes. 3 identical ADSR envelopes. First one is mapped to the VCF, second one to the VCA, and the third one is assignable. I mean, you can route any of these anywhere. Velocity, sensitivity, and then delay on the envelope. That's pretty much it. There's no way to have these looping or any of those kind of things, which I sort of would like to have seen. Also, it's worth mentioning there's no way to trigger these envelopes kind of individually. They're all triggered on key on. So you can't kind of like run an LFO into it, you know, in a sort of more modular sense. But if I just dial in a bit of envelope amount, you can hear that they do get pretty snappy and allow you to do, you know, the things that envelopes generally allow you to do, albeit in a sort of slightly traditional fashion. So now we get to the big one. This is the thing that's been staring us in the face the whole time. This is the modulation matrix. So I've got this patch here, which is just a patch that I've got routed via the filter using velocity. So now let's see, I'm going to maybe, I like a bit of modulation, and incidentally it's worth mentioning you can route the mod wheel separately to the matrix, the cutoff, LFO1 vibrato and LFO1 amount, but this is affecting all three of the VCOs at the same time. If I want to select one VCO, what I'm going to do is go into mod mode. I'm coming VCO1 pitch down here, LFO1, I press that button, and that means now I can dial in the amount positively or negatively that the LFO1 is affecting the pitch of just VCO1. Let's do a couple of other things. There's one thing that I really liked about this is I'm going to take VCO3 and modulate the VCF, just because I really like the sound of that. Creates something quite complex. So now say I want to add a bit of delay to that. I'm using the stereo delay. But what if I wanted to do something fancy, like maybe modulate the delay? I can do that as well. So this is where we get into the assignable mod matrix, these 4 buses here. So to do that, I press and hold the round button at the top of the slot. I'm going to turn delay time, displays flashed. Now slot 13, which is this row here, is going to delay time. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take LFO2 and I'm going to come along here and I'm going to basically assign that to the LFO time, the delay bus that I've just set up. That's nice. So let's see, what else am I going to do? Say for instance now I might want to add a bit of aftertouch into the whole equation. So I think what I'm going to do is assign that to the filter. So what we do here is I will take slot 2. Let's do the master filter, why not? If I come along here, my aftertouch row is here to slot 2. Aftertouch is affecting the filter. That's in a positive amount. I could dial it in so that it would be a negative amount if I prefer that. So let's get on to some more stuff. So say for instance I want to do something with the map these knobs here. So I'm going to take let's see, let's try and map the speed of LFO2, which is the thing that's affecting our delay. Pressed and held. Now I'm going to come along here, select knob 4, which is the bottom row, to slot 3. You can see the LFO speed is changing. If I turn up the delay mix, we can hear that. So let's get into some more stuff. So this now shows us another thing that we can do. We can use one of these assignable slots to affect the depth of modulation of another one. So I'm going to press and assign it to the depth of the delay mod as well. So now I'm going to come along, I'm going to use my 3rd knob, which is this row up here. So that means I can dial in the amount. So now I can affect the speed and the depth of the delay and the LFO. So I'm starting to see what I can control on the front panel. It's worth mentioning, basically anything with a knob or a fader is something that you can control. You can't control any of the switching with this method, so that's all you get access to. And also it's worth mentioning that I don't have to just fix it to that. I can actually now assign this to a number of other things. So say for instance I might want to assign this knob also to the cutoff frequency by an enormous amount. I might want to change the VCO depth as well, which might be in a negative amount. So I've got a positive, negative, positive, and I could have all 16. You know, and that's the point of this. I mean, I could actually use one control or one modulator to modulate up to 16 separate destinations. So I've got an awful lot of power. Now, it's worth mentioning you can't access any of these external or the additional modulation buses via the rear panel. You don't get any way of patching those control voltages into an external system or controlling them from an external system. That's a shame. I spoke to Arturia and they said they couldn't do it because the different kind of voltage standards and the different sort of ranges of control depending on what they're controlling on the front panel meant it was impossible to do. But it's a shame they didn't at least give it a go. The other thing is there's the limitation of the patching points. Obviously, you know, we've got all the matrix here, but things like trigger outputs for individual envelopes, CV control for specific, you know, like maybe oscillator, LFO sync or LFO speed or individual LFO outputs, they're not there. So we don't get, you know, while we've got quite a lot of modulation capabilities, we don't really have the sort of full modular experience. And it would have been nice to be able to see a few of those others. And I guess that now brings us rather neatly to the whole split and paraphonic and duo and all of those things. So we'll take a look at those capabilities now. And that's actually pretty straightforward. It works very simply like this. We can set the mode of the voice with this button here. So we've got monophonic, paraphonic, duo, split. If we want to change the split point of the split, we just press and hold and hit a key, and then the splits however you want. And the voices are also allocated very simply. Basically, anything you route to the top filter, which is the red circle, goes through this pair of envelopes and is the top voice. Anything you route to the bottom filter, which is the greeny filter, basically goes through this single envelope here. And this envelope controls both the VCO and the VCF, and that's sort of hardwired. So it's a simpler voice, but you can route whatever you want through whichever filter you want, and that will give you the split. The next patch, which is a paraphonic patch, you can see that it's changed to paraphonic mode, and now all three voices are operated independently. And it's up to you how you want to tune each one. So it's pretty old school and fairly straightforward. It would have been nice if they could have, when you're in split mode, that one voice, that maybe the lower would come out of the left and the upper would come out of the right, as we've got a stereo output, but that's not possible. In both modes, everything just goes through the effects. You can't have like one effect affecting the other. The other thing to notice is in duo split mode, the sequencer and the arpeggiator will affect whatever is happening on the low half of the keyboard, where in the top half will always be free playing. So now let's take a look at the arpeggiator. That's this section here, which also controls the sequencer. Just switch on like so. And if we go into the sequence mode and I just play some notes, we can trigger up to 16 notes. I'll just put hold on. We can change the resolution to a triplet field, dotted field, quarter notes, 8 notes, 16th notes, 32 notes. We can trigger forward, then reverse, and random as well. We've also got control over the swing, which goes up to 75%. And we can change the level of the gate as well. We've got up to 4 octaves of range, and that's kind of about it. You notice the delay was synced. Obviously, the master tempo will sync to the delay, the LFOs, that kind of thing. So that's why we're getting that kind of nice synced feel. So now on to the sequencer. 4 rows of 16, up to 64 steps. Again, we've got the same resolution and direction stuff that we've got with the arpeggiator, same with the swing and the gate. Now, if we want to record a sequence, it's step sequence only, which is perhaps a bit of a limitation considering we've got the BeatStep Pro and that real-time recording. So I'm just going to record some stuff in. And now I play that. Now you can see we've got, this is the accent track, no problem. Then we've also got the ability to switch in glide. Now if I come up here and turn the glide up, all well and good. Now the top row here is the mod track. So what I can do here is I can type it, I can just bash in a few mod points, and then for each mod point I can set the amount positively and negatively of mod just by pressing and holding, which gives me the ability to kind of have quite a kind of flexible step. But to actually enforce that, I need to go into mod mode, and I've got my sequence mod track here, and I could route that to let's say let's just go pitch, just oscillator 1 pitch, just because that'll be really obvious. Now go back to sequence. So that allows me to create some quite complex stuff. If I want to change the length of the sequence, I just press sequence length, and I would go down to here. Then I can continue to record. I can create odd lengths. It doesn't have to be just 16s. I could make it 4, I could make it, you know, 9, or whatever I want. So I've got some flexibility there. And also, obviously, if I'm in mod mode, I can route the sequencer mod to any number of these destinations as well, including the matrix. So I do get quite a lot of power there. However, it's not possible to decouple the sequencer engine from the synthesizer engine. So if I wanted to run the sequencer to some external gear, I can't do that. I couldn't do that anyway, because the sequencer also doesn't have separate outputs for its own CV and gate and trig and mod tracks and what have you. So there are some limitations, and it's a shame that we can't at least decouple those. Obviously we'd need more hardware outputs to have that. I'm just a bit surprised that that wasn't the case. And coupled with the fact that it's a non-real-time recording process, that's sort of a surprising thing as well. So let's take a look at the connections. IEC 240 to 100 volts 240, so it should work anywhere in the world. Main switch, USB, which is MIDI only and allows you to hook up the MIDI command center, as well as obviously MIDI in and out via USB. MIDI command center is just literally for patch backing up. There's not an awful lot else. In, out and through on hardware, nice to see. Memory protect switch on. Expression pedals, 2 inputs and sustain. Gate and sync in and out for syncing, and gate in and out for triggering. Then we've got the audio input section. Audio gate on means that we can trigger a gate event from this level of the audio signal. This little pop out knob gives us the input gain, line or instrument. Then we're on to all of our CVIO, which is replicated on the first 12 slots of the matrix, all on 1/8 inch jack. This is obviously volt per octave Eurorack standard. Insert point, this is interesting. This is a mono insert, which is post-synth pre-effects. So whatever you plug in here, you might want to put an external filter or compressor or whatever it may be, it's going to be pre-effects. And then finally, stereo line output. So there it is, that's the Arturia MatrixBrute. Yes, it's a hell of a synthesizer. It's massive, it's got lots of sonic potential. I mean, it's a big synthesizer that you will probably be interested in buying because you want a really big synthesizer. I'm not sure you'd be buying it if it was your first mono synth. There are a lot more cost-effective things out there, but they're not going to do quite as much as this, that's for sure. Really, you know, as I said at the beginning, Arturia to be applauded for taking on such a big and impressive project. And I think if you're looking for kind of a centerpiece and something that you can spend a lot of time with, because it is going to take you time to get your head around what this can do and find the sweet spots that suit you, then, you know, definitely worth considering. It does angry, it does aggressive, it does smooth, it does all of the things in between, and it's got a lot of routing and possibilities. Sure, if there was a little bit more I/O and a bit more external capabilities, it's nearly there, it would be even better. But the price at around just a shade under 1,800 UK pounds isn't actually all that bad when you consider the amount of hardware you're getting here. So once again, I want to say thank you very much for watching, and congratulations to Arturia for making such an impressive beast. See you next time.